producers of Film Seizure would like to thank the Lord Summerisle and the people of his island off the west coast of Scotland for this privileged insight into their religious practices and for their generous cooperation in the making of this podcast. I'm Jason Oliver. Come, Chuck. Come, Jeff. It is time to keep our appointment with the Wicker Man.
Hell yes. Hell yes.
That's as baffling as this movie is sometimes.
Hey, everybody. There is nothing baffling about this movie. Hey, everybody. Hi, Chuck. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
I am in my the salmon of knowledge garb.
Nice. Who's the fool? We don't want to be that guy.
Well, I would also be that.
I'll be the man woman.
Well, while Jeff is trying to figure out what baffled him about this movie, we'll be leading him to the cave.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chuck will be young Rowan leading Chuck or leading Jeff through the cave. Yes.
At the end, I'll be like, "Did I do okay? Did I do it?"
Beautifully, Chuck.
But for now, I'm going to go play in the fields. So I'll see you guys later.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we have, if you haven't figured it out, 1973's The Wicker Man. Yes, indeed. We're gonna unpack this sucker. It was a not first time watch for you, Jeff, but close to.
Oh, it's been 15 plus years.
Okay, this is a movie that Chuck and I put on almost every week.
Watch it a lot.
Yeah, I would.
It is
an obscenely amount of times. Yeah,
it is a recent, like within years, discovery for me. Well, I hesitate to call it a discovery because I think you recommended it, but once I watched it, I was like, oh, I need to see that again, like immediately. And then, yeah, like you said, I have a weekly appointment with the Wicker Man that I keep pretty anti-religiously.
I discovered this movie somewhere in the early 2000s. I don't know exactly how or why. I think I was working at the video store and I was going through like the list of releases that were coming out, and there was the extended edition of this was being released for the first time. And I was like, ooh, I've never seen The Wicker Man. I'm interested in this. And I bought I don't even remember where I bought it, but I bought the Anchor Bay 2-disc release in the wooden box, right?
That's cool.
That has the theatrical edition and the extended edition. And that's how I watched it the first time. And I've been in love with it ever since. It is the sneakiest musical ever made. It is definitely a musical. Like, don't let anyone ever tell you differently. The Wicker Man is a musical, and I'm fucking here for it. It's so good.
One of my notes is this is the weirdest musical ever.
Yeah.
It's close. I still think Cannibal the Musical is the weirdest musical ever, but
I don't know.
I think Annette is in the running for weirdest.
Yep, they're all three weird for sure.
But anyway, yeah, The Wicker Man. So, I want to start from the top and explain that there are several cuts of this movie, and it's important. It's important to the history of the film. It's important to like the production of the film. There's an 88 minute cut, which was the original theatrical cut, which is what most people are familiar with. Chuck, it's probably what you've seen. And it's fine, perfectly fine. But there is an extended cut that is about 102 minutes long that I think is better. And it was the original cut of the film before the film producers at Film Lion, or British Lion, I should say, cut it all to hell to release it as a second feature with Don't Look Now, a movie that I feel like we've been circling like sharks for a while.
It's gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
I'm gonna make that happen.
Yeah, it's a good movie. That was the movie. So there were two movies that got greenlit at the same time by the head of British Lion Films, and it was Don't Look Now, and it was this one, The Wicker Man. And then there was a whole like upheaval of ownership at British Lion. They basically sold the company for as a, like to basically save on taxes or something, and then new people came in, and they weren't all that keen on what they saw from Wicker Man. They were used to selling like the same old stuffy TV programs
I
back
can't.
to
I
the BBC and shit.
I cannot imagine somebody walking into this movie, not the green light guys, but just somebody who came in who bought out the library
Yeah.
and looking at this and then just just shrugging and like
That's exactly what they said. So what happened was the Don't Look Now actually started. They released that as is, and it was getting really good reviews. And then they were kind of like, all right, well let's cut up the Wicker Man and release that as a second feature with Don't Look Now. But to do that, they had to trim the runtime. So they ended up cutting about 15 minutes of the movie. And what happened was, it's actually kind of an interesting experiment in editing, because the movie takes place over 2 days, not one day. I should say it takes place over 3 days and 2 nights in the original cut. In the movie, the theatrical movie, it's he gets on the island, he stays the night, and then the next day all the shit goes down, right? So it trims an entire day. Now, most of the stuff that happens on the second day is just included in the first day. But there's kind of a key sequencing thing that they cut out with his temptation by Willow, which actually happens on the second day, the second night he's there, because he tries to leave. He's like, this is bullshit. None of you are telling me what I think is happening here. I need more help. And then that's when he goes to the plane, and the plane is sabotaged, and it forces him to stay the second night at the inn for Mayday the next day, which obviously they need him for Mayday. They can't let him leave. And then there's a scene on the first night where Lord Summerisle actually delivers like a young boy, probably 14 or 15 years old, to Willow as a sacrifice to Aphrodite, right? It's like, initiate this boy sexually. Yeah. So it kind of really sets her up as kind of that goddess of love, right? And also kind of makes things happening on this island a little creepier than is presented in the theatrical version. Yeah. There's like this weird sexual grooming that's happening. So I think that it lends a little bit more likability to Sergeant Howie, because a lot of people, they don't like Sergeant Howie.
I fucking hate him.
And he's not really there to be liked, right?
Right. He is so stuffy and so like he is what I would expect. I don't know, like a old British Protestant to be.
Yeah,
you know,
I think he's Catholic, but yeah.
Well, whatever he is, he's an asshole.
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think that's the big discussion of this movie is Sergeant Howie, who he is, what his motivations are. There's a lot of stuff in the extended edition that takes place before he gets to the island that really illustrates that as well. Yes, he's a pious man. Yes, he's a bit self-righteous in his religious beliefs, but he is fully and rightfully righteous in his pursuit of the law and in trying to save who he believes is a young girl in danger, right? And he does have a separation of the two things. There's a scene at the beginning where there's graffiti on the wall that says Jesus saves, and one of his young underlings at the police station, like a lieutenant or something, I don't know, says, oh, well, those are words to live by. And he's like, yes, words indeed, but there's a time and place for everything. Have it removed, right? So he is very much like, he has a job to do. There's law and order, and then his religious beliefs, while yes, they're extremely important to him, they come second to him delivering, justice.
But then
So-
but then that seems like that would screw up the rest of the movie once he gets to the island, unless he is retreating to, it's like, well, I can't get anywhere with the law, so I'll have to appeal to the religious part. Maybe, I don't know, but
well,
because it almost seems like he's trying to practice the law by way of religion.
well,
Oh, he separates the two when he talks to Lord Summerisle pretty distinctly. So he is saying, first of all, I'm here for the pursuit of the law.
Yeah.
And second of all is this thing. So let's talk about that for a minute, and we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
He does separate the two.
Yeah, he does. I agree. I think everything, all his motivations, everything he does from point A to point B to point C is motivated by his investigation. But along the way, he takes the time to chastise these people for their pagan beliefs, and
Right.
that's where the real unlikability of Howie comes out. But he's still not letting that guide his path. He's letting a really sound investigation guide his path. So anyway, all right. So that was the extended cut. Got cut to hell. It was thought to be lost for years, and it was discovered. I don't know where, but it was eventually released, and it's one of those deals, right, where it's like from the best known elements. So when you watch the extended version, you're watching the extended version, because when it cuts to extended scenes, it's all grainy and everything. It's just in bad shape. And funny enough, the extended edition version was saved in some ways by Roger Corman, because when British Lion was trying to sell the movie, they sent a copy to Roger Corman and to view it, to see if he was interested, and he was like, yeah, I'm interested. And by the time that he kind of got back around to them, they had already sold it. So it turns out they never asked for the copy that they sent to him back. So he had it all those years. And then when he kind of discovered that he had it, when there was this sort of search for the footage to reassemble the original cut, and he was like, oh yeah, I've got it. Here you go, guys. Like the only known copy in existence. Pretty wild.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's a cool story.
Okay, so who is our main actor in this? Sergeant Howie.
It's
Sergeant
the
Howie
Equalizer.
is the Equalizer. Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah, he is.
You can draw a direct line from the Wicker Man to
Queen Latifah. I didn't know you were going there too.
Yeah, and you could stop at Denzel Washington.
Yep, you can stop along the way to Denzel Washington. Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah.
That new Equalizer is not that bad. I've seen a couple episodes.
I've not seen that. She seems like the right fit for that, though. Yeah. So then you've got so that's Sergeant Howie. He's our pious investigator. And then you've got, on the other side of things, Christopher Lee as Lord Summerisle, who is the owner of this island. It is private property, as the people of Summerisle are wont to tell you, and he kind of controls every aspect of life, really, on Summerisle. And that's played by Christopher Lee, of course, known by his Hammer films primarily.
If you want to know more about those, I mean, we've got it right here at Monster Mondays. I've got a lot of Christopher Lee action.
Sweet.
He's not just Darth Dooku or whatever that guy's.
Was he like Plagueis or no?
No. He was Dooku.
Was he Dooku? I think he was something else in the English release of those movies. They named him something else. Isn't that weird?
Oh, Darth Tyrannus.
Yes.
Count Dooku was his Jedi name. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on from that.
Yeah. What is happening?
So Christopher Lee was very important in the making of this movie, like not just being in it, but he, Robin Hardy, and Anthony Schaefer, the director and writer, all pitched in £5,000 to buy the film rights to a book called Ritual that they based this movie on. and Christopher Lee was desperate to get away from the Hammer horror films at this point. He was typecast terribly. He said I'll do the Wicker Man for free. I just need to do something different to distinguish myself from those movies. And boy, did he. So Anthony Schaefer wrote the screenplay. Robin Hardy directed it. Robin Hardy hadn't really done much feature film wise up until this point. Anthony Schaefer was kind of famous for writing Sleuth, the play, which was then made into the movie with Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine. It came out, I believe, the year before this or earlier in the year. So he kind of had some juice behind him. And that's basically why the movie is called Anthony Schaefer's The Wicker Man, to kind of give it a little bit of prestige pop, right? But which
is interesting. Most of the time, writers don't get the ownership of a movie.
Yep. And there's a little bit of sour grapes on the side of the writer of the book, because he claims he didn't get enough credit for the story, and that's pretty well discredited by Schaefer, Lee, and Hardy. They're like, yeah, we bought the rights, we took some ideas, but the movie itself is so completely different. I don't know, never read the book, can't really say. I think one of them said the only thing we really kept was the hair, right? So take that for what it is.
I thought you were talking about, it's like, wait, what, Christopher Lee's hair at the end of this movie? Or no, the rabbit. Yeah, okay.
I was thinking, man, Christopher Lee would at the end of this movie would be such a great Halloween costume. That yellow turtleneck and
well, are you going to do
that wild hair?
Well, wait, I was going to say there's two different costumes here, because
you could do him in the ladies' outfit,
right? You could do like Christopher Lee as Morticia Addams, or you can do Christopher Lee as Wayne Coyne.
Yeah. I think the first part of the night you just do him in drag, right? And then you take off the wig and the dress, and you become Wayne Coyne at the end.
You're right. I was expecting a fucking Flaming Lips video to break out when that wind was getting his hair.
It was written by the Flaming Lips. That song.
Oh, okay.
This is all original music by the Flaming Lips. Actually, what the hell? They should probably just do their own cover version of this album. I'm surprised they haven't. Yeah. I'm gonna send a little seed of plant a little idea to the old Flaming Lips dudes and be like, hey, you guys should just do this cover album.
Stephen Drost could totally be the fool too.
Oh my God, yes. Michael Ivins could be Sergeant Howie. Stoic.
I'm in.
There was something else I wanted to mention briefly. Oh, the music. So the music is by a guy named Paul Giovanni. I don't know much about him. And the band Magnet, they wrote and performed most of the music. A lot of it is taken from like English and Scottish folk songs as well. Like the Cornrig song is taken from a Robert Burns poem. So they really kind of infuse it, with a lot of that kind of like folk music feel, but also wrote a lot of original music too for it. The soundtrack is actually it's kind of difficult to find a complete soundtrack of this movie. I have a reissue of the record, one of the versions of the record, and it's not complete. It's got a lot of the stuff that's not on it. And also there's a whole song, Gently Johnny, that I don't think is even in the theatrical version. That's in the extended version. That plays on the first night when Willow is seducing the young boy, and they're playing it down in the pub. So that whole thing is cut out, and it's a good song. But anyway, yeah. So it's kind of hard to find a complete soundtrack. Weirdly, it's out there, but it's a little bit pricey. It's not really in print. But for me personally, the music is what makes this movie. Take the musical element out of this, and it's not nearly as interesting or compelling to me. It really drives the movie, and that's
it would be a pretty dry movie if it's not there, and then you'd have to deal with with Howie being just an asshole.
Right. Right. It is.
You wouldn't be able to break that up.
And it's funny because it is very much like he just stumbles into it, right? Like they're just waiting to perform for him. Especially that maypole scene where he's like walking around the bend, and then they're like, 1, 2, 3, go!
Yeah, you're right.
Start this song for Sergeant Howie. It's so great.
Love it.
Let's see. So yeah, I guess all right. That's I think all my extraneous stuff for now. Let's go ahead.
The real star of this movie, we haven't talked about the real star of this movie is Britt Eklund.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, yes.
Because she comes busting out of the back room, and it's like, no, this isn't just going to be weird guys and old women. We got Britt Eklund.
Yeah, but we only have part of Britt Eklund. It's kind of weird because she was overdubbed for one thing. They didn't like her Swedish accent, wanted to make her sound more Scottish, so she got overdubbed. And the scene, the Willow song scene where she's dancing seductively, the full nude scenes in that, like of her backside, is not her. It's someone else.
But she did the whole front part.
She did. She said she wouldn't take all of her clothes off because it was freezing. They were shooting this in like November in Scotland. It's not summer at all, and she was just freezing the whole time. She's like, I'm not taking all my clothes off. I'll take off my top, but that's it. You got to get someone else for the full nude scenes. Yeah. Yep. And then she said that she was pissed when she saw it because she's like, they hired someone with a fat ass.
Well, hey, Guy Hamilton still hired her for The Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah, which also
as well as Christopher Lee. Yeah,
yeah, it's like a Wicker Man reunion.
Well, Christopher Lee is related to Ian Fleming, so
he is. They're like step cousins, right?
They are cousins twice removed. I don't know if it's second cousins or first cousins twice removed.
Yeah, I think they're step cousins because Christopher Lee's mother remarried when he was young.
And also both Christopher Lee and Ian Fleming were in the British intelligence during World War II.
Yeah, they were. Pretty crazy. I like The Man with the Golden Gun. I know that's one of your least favorites, but man, I like it.
It's ruined by the car flip. The whole thing is ruined by that. That whole scene down there with the fucking sheriff. All right, let's get back to the
that is bad. That is a bad scene. Yeah, I want the cut of that movie without that guy. Yeah,
without Sheriff Pepper.
Oh, so bad. Okay. Yes, so let's get into it. So for the interest of non-confusion, we'll discuss this as the theatrical version, since that's the version most people have seen, and that's the version you two watched. If I feel like I need to interject something extended-wise, I will, but we'll just proceed like that, so we don't get really weirdly confused, because it can be confusing otherwise. So the movie starts with a seaplane and credits, and Cornrig's playing over the credits, the song by sung by Paul Giovanni, and you're kind of like not really sure what's going on. You're just sort of, the seaplane is flying over this beautiful Scottish landscape, and then lands in the water, and out gets Captain Howie, and he calls for the dinghy, and he wants basically them to send a dinghy so he can go ashore. And this is where he gets his first sort of stonewalling, right? They're like, yeah, no, we're not gonna do that. You have to have permission. This is private property. It's like, I have all the permission I need. I'm an officer of the law. Send the dinghy, damn it. And you kind of get your first inclination of who Howie is. He's very straightforward, very law and order. He's kind of a tight ass a little bit, right? Kind of. He has a lot. He's not there to have fun. He's on official business. And they kind of relent. They send the dinghy. He gets on it. He gets on shore, and he tells them too from the plane that he's there to investigate a missing missing girl. And then, he further questions them on the dock about it. And they're like, yeah, that's terrible business, a missing girl, and he's like, well, I've got a picture. Can you tell me, if you've seen her? And they're all just like, no, she doesn't belong to this island. There's no one here by that name. Her name is Rowan. But there is some Rowan Morrison, but there is a Ms. Morrison on the island who runs the post office. And they're like, oh, yes, we know who that is, but that's not her daughter. But you can go talk to her at the post office if you like. So he goes and walks to the post office. So here's how he's kind of like, all right, what the hell? I got this letter that says that there's this missing girl that the mother insists that nothing is wrong, but she's been missing for months. It's an anonymous letter, so he doesn't know who to ask about it. But it seems like somebody who lives on the island is concerned enough to send this letter to the mainland. And he's there to investigate, what's going on with this. And he's already kind of getting like weird, conflicting messaging from the people who live there, saying that this, girl doesn't exist, isn't the daughter of the woman who the letter says is her mother. So it's kind of weird, right? And as an audience member, I don't know. I don't remember, like, everybody kind of knows the ending to this movie, even if they haven't seen it, I feel like, right? And I don't even remember the first time I watched it if the mystery was a mystery for me or not. It kind of is, I guess. It kind of was, but I still kind of there was a determination in what's going to happen to Sergeant Howie. I don't believe that was the case, obviously, when this movie came out. But what about you guys watching it? Did you, Jeff, I think, know that Rowan was kind of like was bait or not? And Chuck, when you watched it the first time, what did you think about that mystery? Was it a mystery for you, even though you probably knew what was going to happen at the end, even though you hadn't seen it, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, Jeff, do you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
For me, I figured it out the first time I watched it. And figured it out as I say that lightly because they lay it out for you. You know exactly what's going to happen when he's reading the book in the library.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's totally 100% laid out. Stephanie actually figured it out earlier, and it kind of deterred her from because she really loves mystery. So we often have to pause to take the dog out or whatever. She's like, well, this is what I think is going on. And he had to come here for his own free will and jump. I'm like, Jesus, you know exactly. I didn't tell her this, but she knew exactly what was going to happen. So for me, that didn't take away anything from the story. It was kind of like, hey, we're going to get there. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, how are we going to get there, and what are the particulars? Yeah.
How are we going to get there? Indeed.
How are we going?
I almost said that too.
For me, I think if I remember correctly, the first time I saw it, I think it was probably about the time when he resumes the body and it's empty, and it's like, well, something's not right here. So obviously she's probably still alive or never existed. I don't know if I landed on anything concrete until, like Chuck said, the library scene is where it lays it all out.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
But I also remember the first time I watched it I watched it with past guest Amber Brown. And we were like probably mostly like sitting there with our head or like our head in our hands, like just slack jawed, like, what is happening? What the fuck is going on? Everybody breaks out into song. I didn't think I was getting a musical. And I remember
I was kind of
I remember when it was all over, it's like, well, the ending was kind of worth it, but oof, the journey is rough. And the journey is still rough 17 years later, I will add.
That's funny. I remember messaging Jason about a half an hour into my first watch of this. I'm like, this is a fucking musical, and I love it. Like, I had no idea. And that, again, I think you both mentioned this. Without the music, this would not be nearly as effective a movie. I think that.
Well, it sets up
a little with.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, with the Corn Rig song at the beginning, I was like, ooh, I don't know about this. But then once you get to the more musical numbers, I'll say, I'm like, okay, I'm all about this.
Well, in a sort of way, it's, I look at it like I didn't think anything of the opening just because it's 1973 British movie. It's going to be weird, probably. But I will say that the music's effective in one thing, which is the fact that it creates this kind of otherworldly feel to everything. Like, this isn't a real place. I mean, it is, but it really unsettles somebody who's from a city, whereas this place is a tight-knit, like, small community. And yeah, they break out in the song. Doesn't the first Hobbit movie have a song break like that, where it's like they're in like a tavern, and it breaks out into a song?
I think so. Yes, when all the dwarfs show up.
Yeah.
I think so.
So
what it also does is it makes these people likable, because they're cheerful, they're happy. You can tell they're happy, right? So you have this mystery, yes, and this terrible mystery. If what this letter says is true, or what Captain or Sergeant Howie thinks is true, then it's very sinister. So there's this underpinning of sinister behavior that could be potentially happening here. But yet the people are so likable. They seem so cheery and kind and happy that it really creates this kind of interesting dynamic between who you're supposed to be rooting for and who the villains are, right?
Yeah.
At the same time too, they're sexualizing this.
That's very true.
Young woman, so there is like a weirdness to it that you're like,
and she's
all
into
of
it.
These people, all these people are very comfortable singing about her vagina, like in roundabout terms. So it's like, oh, that's a little weird, but it's very upbeat. It's off-putting, but in a good way.
Yep.
Like, it makes you second guess
most
everything.
Definitely, because you kind of when you hear the song initially, it kind of just strikes you as just a drinking song, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just a song. But then you realize, this is actually about her.
Right.
It's not just, she is the landlord's daughter for real. And this song is about her. Yeah. And it makes
it's not a handed down song from generations that people just sing. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, and it's kind of that old trope, right? Where later on in the 80s and 90s, it was the suburbs that have the deep, dark, weirdo mystery and weirdo people. But back then it was the secluded township or secluded. And this is, this is even up to freaking Hot Fuzz. This stuff is still done in British movies where it's
you've kind of defined one of the key tenets of folk horror right there, right? And that's what this movie sort of established alongside Blood on Satan's Claw and Witchfinder General as sort of what's called the unholy trinity of folk horror that was attributed, years and years later to these movies by Mark Gatiss, I believe. But yeah, so yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. And then this movie is establishing that sort of folksy, attitude, that sort of folksy thing that, yes, most people in the city, they stumble into that and it's immediately discomforting, right?
Yeah.
And what makes it even more discomforting is that it's pretty clear everyone in this town knows each other. So when he gets like conflicting information about Rowan, that's really confusing to Howie and to the audience, right? It's like, what the fuck is going on? Everybody either would know who this girl is or doesn't, right? There should be no in between.
And there's a lot of confusion around it. By the way, Mark Gatiss is a several-time actor, several-time writer of Doctor Who.
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes too, didn't he?
Yep.
Didn't he write some of the new Sherlock Holmes? Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of yeah, it's like then people start conflicting their stories, and it's like, wait, town, did you not all get on the same page here? What's going on? Are some people against what's going on?
Right.
Are some people for it? Are some people, or are they just the town idiots that are like accidentally telling people the wrong thing?
Yeah.
But
as the movie unfolds, you kind of get, oh, okay, they're all just kind of leading him along a certain journey, and they're giving him the information he needs at that point in time, but they are deliberately confusing him for sure.
Yeah, he's a beetle on a string, man.
Yep, he is a beetle on a string.
Yeah,
that girl was weird.
Oh,
yeah,
that girl is weird. She was actually like 26 years old playing.
Oh my god,
girl. Yeah,
she could
super weird.
She could be played by Heather Matarazzo.
Oh my god, yeah. Today.
Today. Or the girl who was the bathroom spirit in the Harry Potter movies.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Myrtle.
Yeah. Yeah, that I don't know why they needed to cast someone so old for that.
Well, she looks like she's 13. I mean,
well, she's not. She doesn't though. She looks.
Well, she is a little weird in that classroom, but maybe she's just developmentally stunted.
Right. That's the other weird thing is, well, we'll get there. We'll probably talk about that when we.
Where are we now? Landlord's daughter.
So yeah, he goes to the post office and talks to Rowan's supposed mother. Rowan's mother has no idea who this girl in the picture is. Her daughter's in the other room. He goes and talks to her. She's painting a hair. She knows who Rowan is. She's out playing in the fields, and Sergeant Howie's like, "Oh, this is going to be a quick solve." And then she's like, "No, silly, Rowan's a hare, right?" So she says that Rowan, this is kind of the first time the idea that she's been transformed into another being is presented. Like Rowan existed, but has been transformed after death into a March hare. Yeah. And that's confusing, especially for a Catholic. It's like, what the fuck? Sergeant Howie does have one great line later that I want to make note of. That is my favorite thing he says in the movie. And he kind of says everything that the audience to that point is probably thinking.
Right.
But we'll get there. And it's about that woman too. Rowan's supposed mother, well, actual mother. But so then he doesn't really get anywhere with Rowan's mother. So then he I think it's this point where he goes to the pub, right?
Yep.
Yes, and that's where they're all waiting to sing for him. After the maypole, he passes the maypole, I think, on the way to the pub, does he not?
That's later.
Or that's later. Okay.
That's a little later.
I think he sees the maypole, but it's not the song part.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
He goes, yes, because he goes to the Green Man Inn. The Green Man.
I want a shirt with that logo.
Yeah, it's really badass. The Green Man is an old pagan symbol, and he's starting to, I think, get some vibes that this is a little bit not on the up and up as far as his religious comforts go, right?
Plus, they're all fucking with him, anyway.
And they're all fucking with him, right? But he's like, there's a missing girl. I get this anonymous letter, and nobody's concerned, right? I mean, he's getting pretty visually perturbed by this and confused by their lack of recognition of Rowan. But there's pictures in this pub of all the past May Queens with that year's harvest, and there's one picture missing from last year, and he questions that, and the landlord and the bar owner says, "Oh, it got broken, no big deal." So that's kind of a really good audience clue. It's like, oh yeah, Rowan's in that picture, right? I mean, nobody doesn't think that, right? I mean, it's pretty clear. But they take it down, and then that's when he kind of announces to everyone what he's there for, and passes the picture around, and nobody recognizes her. He's super confused. So he's like, well, fine. I just want my dinner. And that's when they break out into the Landlord's Daughter song, which is an awesome scene. Everybody has like their little thing to add to it too, with like funny lyrics. It's very bawdy, right? But he gets his dinner, and this is I like this scene. It's very interesting. It's all in a can. It's potatoes, beans. Like, beans aren't supposed to be turquoise, are they? Right? And it's like these really funny colored beans. And
it's like, just eat what they fucking serve you, asshole. I mean, come on now. If you're hungry, you got to eat what they give you. You can't. Beggars can't be choosers.
It is a pretty shitty meal, though. I mean, you can expect something better. And he's questioning it. He's trying to be polite to a degree. But yeah, if someone had served me turquoise beans, I'd be a little like, what the fuck, right?
I mean, I guess if you want to be like, what's that fucking guy? The fucking chef guy that yells at everybody about and like
Gordon.
Gordon Ramsay, where he like he eats something, he pretends like he's gonna throw up.
Right.
Like, you might think he's being an asshole here, and maybe he is, but this is very important to the story because he's on an island that should be able to grow apples, that should have vegetables.
He does say this is an island that's known for its fruits, and you have no apples.
Yeah.
Which is a fair question. I mean, but then again, I was thinking, it's like, is that possible in Scotland?
Right.
Like most of what I know about Scotland is no sun and cold.
Yeah.
You're supposed to question that too.
You're definitely that's definitely something to ponder and is answered. But Willow kind of plays it off. She's like, food isn't everything in life. It's her first sort of like tempt of him as well, right? And
it's like, did you not hear the song?
Right. Exactly. It's like,
she also says
about me, right?
Some natural things have pretty vibrant colors.
Yeah.
Too.
It's like, wait until you see how the carpets and the drapes match. Wait until you see those colors, buddy.
One quick note here. I did not know this until I read the book that Jeff got me, the classic movie monsters collection book on the Wicker Man, which is a really cool little pictorial book with some interesting factoids. The guy who plays the landlord, not the landlord's daughter, the guy who plays the landlord, his name is Lindsay Kemp, and he was actually only like 36 in this movie.
Jesus Christ.
I know. Yeah, he looks like an old man, and he's only like 4 or 5 years older than Britt Eklund.
Britt Eklund at that time was already 30, I think.
Yeah, she was 30, which is crazy to me, right? So he's playing her father, and he looks like he could play her father, but he's only a handful of years older. But he had a brief romantic relationship. This is all this book says. I want to dig into this later, but he had a brief romantic relationship with David Bowie.
I was gonna say,
oh wow,
yeah. They
were collaborators on several things. Both
that's wild.
Each other's work throughout their careers. Yeah.
I love the way that he talked and said things because it was very effeminate, and there felt to be some sort of a, I don't mean it like this, but oddness to how he talked and how he presented, because he was also very kind of sarcastic too, and it's like, this guy. He's smart. It's like, I like this guy.
Yeah, the book says that his brief romantic relationship with David Bowie became a lengthy friendship and creative collaboration, with Bowie working in Kemp's shows and Kemp appearing in Bowie's video for John, I'm Only Dancing. He also mentored Kate Bush, who wrote the song Moving for him, and created works for Ballet Rambert and Sadler's Wells. I don't know what all that is, but yeah, kind of wild.
Huh.
So, anywho, this is when Sergeant Howie decides he wants to go to bed. And this is where... Oh, Chuck, you're on...
thank you. He does go outside first, and he notices...
Oh, yes. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I made a note of this.
A bunch of people having sex.
Naked cemetery, fucking in the grass, weird shit everywhere. That's what I wrote down.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's when he gets
orgy
angry.
in the commons.
Yes. He's real pissed off at this point. He goes in and bangs on the counter and all that, and then he grabs his keys and goes to bed.
Yep. Yes, indeed. And and this is where, in the extended version, he Lord Summerhour delivers the boy to Willow, but instead we have, in the theatrical, we have the Willow song, the scene where she goes to his door and invites him to her room, and then sings like almost as a siren to him from her room next to his.
Well, she is also beating on the wall, which is probably not
That
helping him sleep.
That as well.
So I don't blame him for getting up and it's like, what's going on?
He's very visibly tempted, though. He
Oh, yeah.
not he doesn't like have a full on erection, but he probably does.
Well, I mean, if he could see what we could see,
Yes.
I mean,
Exactly.
It's not bad.
So she's dancing nude, singing her song to him, and he's kind of getting up and biting his fist like our friend Mike DeCrane would, and he's like,
Yeah.
you know, and but that I think is an important thing to note here as well, because this in the theatrical is the first time you understand that he is engaged to be married. He has a flashback to him speaking in church, right, and very piously talking about, you know, his faith, and you understand that he's a virgin. Now, it's not as explicit in the theatrical version as it is in the extended. The scenes at the beginning make a big deal out of him being a virgin and him being engaged, and the woman he's engaged to, they haven't had sex yet, right? I mean, it's very much like there's no room for doubt. This is a 40-year-old virgin or whatever, right? So that I like that setup a little better in the extended. But anyway, he's very clearly being tempted, and this to me is, I think, open to some interpretation, and I kind of want to get your guys' take on it. But to me, like, if Willow were to succeed, then their plans fail, right? They need to find someone else. But
And
it's
quick.
a test, right? But it's kind of a test. They got to be sure. Is that kind of the way you guys take it?
Yeah, without giving up the ending 100%, they knew this is how he would react or should react.
Right.
Like if he
If he is
didn't
who they
react
think
that
it
way,
is.
yeah, if he didn't react that way, he's the wrong guy.
Yeah. And
Like,
right.
because I think this also is them driving him to dislike them more and want to find Rowan more too.
Sure. Yeah.
So if they can unsettle him, then he would, you know, I mean, he is going to do what they want later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So then he doesn't fall for the temptation. He wakes up the next morning and continues his investigation. And this is where he stumbles into the maypole scene. They're just
That's right, because he's on his way to the school.
Yeah. He goes. Yes, exactly. He's on his way to walk to school, and on the way there is a man leading a group of boys in song around a maypole with ribbons tied to the maypole, and it's essentially like a song about sex. It's a song about death and rebirth, right? It is exactly what May Day is in this song, and it's a celebration of that. It's a celebration of life, and then the inevitable death, and then the rebirth of life again. And the maypole signifies the tree that grows from the life out of death, essentially, that grows from the graves of humans. And that's important later when he goes to the graveyard.
It's also a phallic symbol.
And it is
We
a phallic
found-
symbol.
yeah.
Yes, that's what we
Oh,
find
yeah,
out when
we
he goes into the classroom.
Yeah, we also see later there is a there is that bush that's just an erect cock.
Yes.
And there's also later a jar of foreskins.
Yes.
Yes.
And an umbilical cord. You
Oh,
one of
yeah.
those. Yep.
Yeah, that's what you
Yeah,
do.
all sorts of good fleshy bits. So Chuck, do you want to talk about what happens in the classroom?
Yeah, he goes into the classroom and he's mortified by the song outside, and he kind of listens to what is going on in the classroom and how they're talking about how the maypole represents a phallic symbol, and he goes in and he's just completely miffed right? Like he cannot believe what is being taught in these schools. And he pulls the teacher aside and kind of chastises her, but then he passes around the picture of Rowan Morrison while there's also an empty desk in the classroom, right? So he passes the picture around. All the girls basically say they don't know who she is. He eventually gets pissed off, and everyone in this town tells him everything he wants to do needs to be approved by Lord Summerisle.
Yeah.
And he's like, nope, you're going to have to bear with me as I take out your register. And then he sees that there was a girl in the class. I can't remember if her name is listed, but her address of the postmaster at High Street.
Yeah.
Okay,
he
but
accuses them all of being liars at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
He at least knows
and the
for sure
teacher
that
is the biggest liar of them all.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 100%. And he's like, whose desk is that? That's got to be Rowan Morrison's. He opens it, and he sees a little beetle on a string with the little creepy girl who's like, yeah, he always goes.
Daisy.
Yes, he always goes in the same direction until he winds himself all the way tight to the pin. And if you're paying attention,
poor thing. Yeah,
poor thing. Well, poor thing. Why the hell do you do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's the literal representation of Howie. Like, it's pretty obvious at that point what that beetle represents. So I can't remember where he goes right from the school, but he basically has the information. Rowan Morrison was alive. He believes that she's dead now. He starts yelling at the girls, and the teacher takes him outside and says, we don't use the word death here. We believe in, I think she says rebirth, and she says to him, you might call it resurrection, but Rowan is now, her energy is reborn into the world, right?
Yes, she's been and possibly transformed. This is where you get that next sort of clue. Yeah. Yes, indeed. I like the line where he says, she's like, well, in a manner of speaking is what she says. And then he retorts with, in plain speaking.
Yes.
it's a great Howie line.
When he asks where she's buried, and she says at the building by the cemetery, and he's like, the church? She's like, well, it's not a church.
Right.
It's
consecrated ground.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is where he goes then to the graveyard, to the churchyard. And yes, this is an interesting thing too, because this place had a church at some point. It's been deconsecrated, but whoa, interesting, right? It hasn't always been this way, this pagan belief system. So what's that about? Which we get an answer to. I mean, everything has an answer in this movie, and I appreciate that. So then he goes into the graveyard, and this is weird. This one I get confused as to what's in the extended and what's in the theatrical. But there's a grave headstone that says protected by the ejaculation of serpents.
That's in the.
Is it? It's fucking what? Yeah. I mean, that is insane. There's a woman in there breastfeeding her child, right? Just hanging out on a tomb, which is crazy. And he sees where they I think, is this where they staged the photo? Because there's fruit and stuff on one of the tombs.
Yeah.
And he knocks it all off, and he makes a cross out of two pieces of wood and puts it on there, almost like, trying to show what he believes is proper respect for the dead, right?
Right.
And he's pretty perturbed by all of this pagan pageantry. Is it pageantry?
Pageantry.
Pagan pageantry.
Pagan pageantry. Yeah, that's hard to say.
I did want to say
he talks to go ahead, Chuck.
I just wanted to say one thing that the teacher told him about death. She says, rotting bodies are the great stumbling block of children's imagination. So even though the adults know that bodies rot and die, they continue this lie with the children to allow their imagination.
Well, and they also say transformation is easier for children to understand than resurrection.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's kind of not true. I read comic books when I was a kid. And people resurrected all the fucking time.
Well,
But it did not make me a Christian. It made me only believe in Thor more.
Thor more. That's
Thor
me.
more.
Thor more. Please change your name to Thor.
It's in the theatrical, right, where he meets the caretaker, the
Yes.
gardener. Okay.
Yeah,
that's Aubrey Morris.
That's Alex's truant officer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, go back to our Clockwork Orange episode to hear more about him.
Yep.
Slamming his hand onto onto Alex's cock.
But he explains that where he shows where Rowan is buried. He's like the first person to really.
This guy is definitely the town idiot. He is not in on the plan here.
See, I think he is, because it all leads to
Ingrid Pitt.
Well, yes, but he said there's no headstone yet. It's too early for the headstone. They planted a tree that's growing from her grave, and attached to the tree is her umbilical cord, which is so fucking gross. And he shows it real close to the camera.
It's like it's
calls it
jerky
navel
now.
skin.
Navel cord, I think, or navel skin. Yeah, it's so nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, gross.
Because it looks like beef jerky now.
Mm-hmm.
It just is, and it's like gross.
Yeah, navel string. Yeah, that's what he calls it. Ugh. So then this is when he goes back to. I think it's when he goes back to Rowan's mom's, the post office. And
this is where I briefly turned into Dr. Steve Brule, because as I was writing the note frog in the throat, I wrote frong in the throat. I was so bewildered by this.
She's treating her daughter
her sore throat
by putting a little frog in her mouth and making her keep it in her mouth for a few seconds. And Howie just happens to observe this happening. And she notices Howie, and she says, "Can I do anything for you, sir?" And my favorite fucking thing in the movie that he says is like, "I doubt it, seeing as you're all raving mad."
Yep.
It's perfection. It's like, "Yep, I'm actually with you here, Howie. These people are nuts."
Yes.
There is one thing that I ask myself constantly, and maybe you know the answer. Why doesn't he get on the horn and send for backup? Ever?
Well, he I think is going to try to do that later. He doesn't think he needs it right now. He's just.
But he's being stonewalled every turn. It's like, get some help, bud, because.
Well, he threatens that very thing in the next scene with the lady in the coroner's office, Ingrid Pitt.
Right, Ingrid Pitt. Yeah.
I mean, he threatens to take her to the mainland and put her in jail if she doesn't give him the information that he needs. Right. So he's getting there. He's getting there. I mean,
she's pretty sassy with him.
Doesn't he go see Christopher Lee before he goes and sees Ingrid Pitt?
No.
Yes. No, because he's got to
He forces her to give him something, but then he has to go and get the order for the body to be
the
resumed.
body.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is when he goes to the registrar or whatever, and he sees that there is no death certificate for Rowan. He's been told Rowan is dead by the school teacher. The lady at the registrar's office or whatever doesn't recognize Rowan, but and he looks up the death records, and there isn't one for Rowan.
But there is a grave.
There is a grave. So what's going on here? So there's no death certificate. So then, yes, this is when he then goes to see Lord Summerisle because he wants to exhume the body of Rowan, and he needs his permission to do that. power of the law only goes so far.
And Christopher Lee's got an excellent view of Naked Stonehenge.
Yeah, this is creepy because they're not the same actors, but those are supposed to be the same girls in the
Schoolgirls.
Schoolgirls. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, but and Chris Lee can just look out the back window there, and it's like,
Yeah,
nice.
and he even kind of gives Howie a little wink about it. You
yeah,
know? It's like you're enjoying I forget his exact words, but enjoying the view essentially is what he's saying, right? Yeah.
his hair is bonkers throughout the entirety of this movie.
Yep.
It is crazy. The mane on Christopher Lee in this movie. It's like, that's got to be a wig, right? That is a wig, right? It must be.
No, that's his hair. It's his hair.
God, I hope. Can I someday have that hair? I do have.
I certainly can't. That's all I know.
For you, it would be a wig, and that would be
Yeah.
fine, Chuck. It's fine. Go for it.
Yeah, because I actually did think I should be him for Halloween one day, and I was like, I can't pull it
Yeah.
off.
We could all
gotta get
three
away.
be different versions of Christopher Lee.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Christopher Lee
yeah.
does have a good line here, though, when Sergeant Howie, is incredulous about the fact that they're naked girls out there. And he's
Can't
like,
jump over fire with clothes on.
Exactly. It's
Sorry for
much
stealing
too dangerous to jump
Yeah.
over fire with your clothes on.
And to which, when Christopher Lee says that to you, you'd be like, "Wow, you can't argue that point."
Yeah, but there's a few.
Thank you, Dracula.
There's a few important things here that happen. One, Christopher Lee or Lord Summerisle immediately gives him permission to exhume the body. Like immediately says he can do it.
Yep.
But then he explains how his grandfather bought the island,
1868.
and that's when this pagan kind of religion was instituted, because here the old gods are not dead. And then he asks him, well, what about the one true God? And he's like, well, he had his chance, and he failed us. So, and he's dead. He can't care, right?
Yeah.
That we're doing this. It's pretty awesome.
So yeah, exactly. And his grandfather was keenly interested in the combination of the volcanic soil and the warm Gulf Stream, and figured that he could plant crops. So it's kind of like this naturally unnatural combination of biology, right? That allows these crops to be grown. And before that, the people they were laborers, they were toiling away. They were leading miserable lives under the church, right? Which was there. But when he planted crops and showed them that they could plant crops, he also saw an opportunity to what he said, give them their old gods back. But in reality, it was just another way of control, right?
Right.
It was a way of instituting something different, giving them their old gods back, which they may or may not have even remembered. But it was a way of instituting this new belief system around prosperity that he himself is the Lord of, right?
Right.
So it was really to prop him up. So and this is Lord Summerisle has no problem telling Howie all this. He's like, yeah, it's all a sham, it's all pretty much bullshit is what he's telling them. But they believe it, we believe it, and it works. So fuck off, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is where Sergeant Howie is like, look, I have my first priority is the law.
Right. Right.
Second to that, I think it's that order. And second to that is my religious belief. So I'm going to shit on you for the way you're doing this as well. But that won't get in the way of my investigation.
He calls him a heathen. Howie calls him a heathen. He says, a heathen perhaps, but not an unenlightened one, I hope. Right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's this really fascinating battle of wits in a way, right? This battle of belief systems between the two of them. It's really interesting. And it's what I love about it is that Lord Summerisle he's explaining the whole thing, right? The reason they believe the way they believe, there's no bones about it. It's like belief is belief. We love nature and fear it. That's what we're about here. It all sounds perfectly reasonable, to a degree, right? It's in and Captain Howie, Sergeant Howie. I keep calling him Captain. Howie is really
because
kind
of Captain Howdy.
maybe, but he's kind of, you know, this is where he's become self-righteous and where you really start to dislike the way he approaches his own belief system, and that it should supersede theirs. Like, my belief system is more important than yours, right? So this is where you kind of like side with both of them here. You know, there's this lawful investigation that's happening in this missing girl still, and clearly some pretty creepy things happening on this island that probably some higher powers of law need to come in and investigate. But at the same time, you're kind of like, man, Howie, you're not really making a great case for your belief system either, you know?
No.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to fail him in the end anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yes. There's some great stuff to unpack there. But,
yeah.
So he gives them. He says, "Well, all I need right at this point is your permission to exhume Rowan's grave." And Lord Summerisle was like, I was under the impression I had already given it to you. Like, why are you still here, right?
Yeah, get fucked. Yeah, it's like, you get out of here. Yeah.
Yep. So he goes, and with the help of Alex's truant officer, they exhume the body. And what's in the body? Or what's in the body? What's in the grave?
What's in the box, Chuck?
In the box.
What's in the box?
It's a March hare.
It's a March hare.
It's Rowan's transmogrification.
Yeah.
And the gravedigger just laughs.
Yeah.
Well, he already knows. He already knows. He's laughing as he's opening the damn thing.
Yeah. And this, of course, is incredibly confusing now to Howie, right? And but he's pissed. He's he goes. I've had enough, right? I mean, he's hit his breaking point here.
So he goes back to Chris Lee's place, and he's there hanging out with Aunt Zelda from Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
That's the teacher, man.
I know, but it just looks like Zelda from it looks like Aunt Zelda.
Totally, it totally does. You're absolutely right. Which is funny because I think it was Aunt Zelda in the new Teenage Witch.
I still haven't watched that on Netflix. I want to.
It's pretty good. It kind of gets a little not great as it goes, but first season's really good. But rewatching The Lord of the Rings, the woman who is not Gondor, but the other place, who is the kind of the badass lady who has a crush on Aragorn.
Oh yeah,
the Lord of the Rings trilogy. She plays one of the ants in the new Teenage
Really?
Witch. Yeah.
Nice.
I can't remember which one. But anywho, so he goes and he confronts, Christopher Lee playing piano with Aunt Zelda in his castle, and it's amazing. He's really into it too. You can tell that Christopher Lee's just having a ball.
Oh yeah, it's like I'm finally out of I'm no longer a monster. This is great.
Yeah. And he confronts them about this, and she tries to give him the line that, she's been transformed. And this is where Howie has a couple other great lines. He's like, I hope you don't think I can be made a fool of indefinitely, right? Which is awesome.
Right.
Such a British way of saying, you're speak plainly to me, right? And
right.
And then he's like, well, where's Rowan's body? And Christopher Lee, great line back, says, I think you're supposed to be the detective here.
Love it.
Fuck, right? Now, this is where I think the extended version is infinitely better in a way, because Jeff, you brought up the point. It's like, why doesn't he go get help, right? And in the extended version, he does at this point. This is when he goes to get on his plane and
he does it
back to the main line.
He does it in the movie too. Theatrical.
Well, yes, you're right. He does. But this is the point where he's forced to stay another day. Sorry. Right.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. I mean, it's perfectly reasonable. He's like, I'm in over my head here now. Right. I need help. And he can't go. His plane's been sabotaged. He has to stay.
Well, yeah, because they even say it's like, you do not want to be here on May Day.
Yeah.
Like they're making it real clear. He needs to beat cheeks. Fast.
I love that. I love that they're like taunting him with that.
Yeah.
When they know full well he can't leave. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's creepy.
Well, I like that the one guy is like, well, so and so can row you back to, but it'll be like a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love when he goes to his boat too. Like, there's the costumed animal face people popping up, or his
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
creepy.
yeah.
popping up behind the wall. Like,
Yeah.
it's super creepy. You're like, oh god, like these people are genuinely fucking nuts. Like, they are raving lunatics for
Yep.
sure.
They are at least creepy.
Yep.
What does he? It's either right before this or I guess right after, where he actually goes to the library and determines that Rowan's still alive, and I think that's why he wants to
I
get help.
think that's when he has to go get. I thought that was when he wanted to get help. Was that he learns what's going to happen. So it's like I better get back to the mainland.
It's possible.
Yeah, I can't investigate all this alone and find this girl by myself. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, it's jumbled for me. But yes, he does. He discovers two things. He discovers the photograph, the negative, and that it was Rowan in the Mayday picture, which we knew all along, and that the crops failed that year. So he's putting it together. It's like, okay, he's reading in the library the things about the fertility drama, right? And he's reading things that he doesn't realize he's playing a part in. But about the fool and the man woman and the man animal and all of this. But he basically puts it all together. It's like, okay, they were keeping her secluded because that's what they do according to this book, and that they're going to sacrifice her to improve their chances for crops this year. And that's, yes, you're right. That's when he goes to the plane. He's like, okay, I figured this out, but I can't do this alone. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's great. He starts a little investigation, and he's looking through people's houses. He does find a casket who he thinks Rowan might be in, but he finds an old lady missing her hand, who's dead with the pennies on her eyes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
One kid feigning their own death is laying on the floor with blood coming out of her mouth, but then she gets up laughing and runs away. He sees who's the lady? Ingrid Pitt lying naked in her room, like being all, woo, baby. And he's like, oh, sorry. And he runs away. And then he decides, I'm going to take a nap.
Yeah.
Well, I will take a 30-minute sleep, sir.
Yeah. He slams a shot of whiskey and he's like, I'm going to go take a nap.
Yeah.
But it's only going to be for 30 minutes.
Yep.
But they, Britt, excuse me,
The
Willow,
landlord and the landlord's daughter, Willow. Yep.
Yep. Go up there and they're talking rather loudly, but trying to pretend they're not because they know he's awake.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we'll just burn this thing and it'll make him sleep forever or whatever. And what do they burn? The old lady's hand.
It's so creepy, man. They turn their own fingers into candles. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to like have this like, I don't know, like a sedative
Calming
effect. Yeah.
Yeah. That's weird. But during that, you can see that the landlord is wearing or getting into the full costume.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you haven't figured it out by now, you should at this point know what the hell's going to happen, right?
Yep.
King for a day, for a lifetime or whatever. He knocks out the landlord, puts on the full costume, and yeah.
This is when he finds out also that somebody's going to be the salmon of knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's like
when he's doing his investigation, his search of the houses. Yeah. The salmon of knowledge.
He's like, that's my costume. I'm the salmon of knowledge.
And I'm like, cool. Sweet. Now tell me more.
So he joins the procession as the fool. And there's this whole now he's part of the ritual now.
Well, the fool's name is actually Punch, which is important
they can't
later.
Their Punch.
Right.
Yes. But I love it. He joins the procession and they're all dancing, and Christopher Lee looks at him and he pretends that he thinks he's who he should be, the landlord,
They all do. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's really great. And he's like, "You're what? That's you call that dancing? You know, little step in it. You know." He's like, it's just kind of like needling him a little bit.
Yeah.
It's so cruel and great. Yeah, but they do a couple different rituals. They do the beheading ritual where they each have to put their head in the cross between these swords, and it's a game of chance. They say
it's kind of like a hexagonal pentagon.
yeah.
I don't know what that means, but that's what
it's in the center stone of their Stonehenge area.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, there's also the guy who's the horse who has to go and gobble up ladies.
yeah.
That guy seemed like he was having fun.
He got the cameraman too, but then
he did get the cameraman. The cameraman must have been a lady.
Yeah, camera lady.
Because the three most important people are the horse, which I think is supposed to be a knight that charges the women. You got Punch, the fool, and then you've got the mannish lady who is both seduction and strength or something.
Yeah, it's supposed to be played by the leader of the community. They're supposed to play it. So it's Lord Summerisle.
And Christopher Lee is rocking it. He's he just gets that long, straight black hair. It's fantastic. I imagine that's how he recorded this heavy metal album too.
Oh, most definitely. He saved the wig.
Oh yeah.
Like I have a perfect wig for this.
And then he dyed it white for Lord of the Rings.
Yep. Yeah. I've got a perfect wig for this, guys. Have wig will show up on set. That's his motto.
Oh, and
Have wig will show up on the set. Sorry.
They sacrifice a bottle of a barrel of ale to the sea, and
it gets real foamy.
Yeah, it gets real foamy. I know. It's kind of like, ooh, that's fun.
Yeah.
And then they go to really this cliff, and that's when sort of everything is revealed. You see Rowan up on the hillside. Howie still dressed as a fool sees her, and he runs up to her to save her. It's like, what the fuck is he going to do? I don't know. But he runs up there. She says something like, I don't like this place anymore, mister.
Yeah, take me away. Take me away.
They
like really selling it, lady.
Yeah. She did it beautifully. And they run through the caves, and on the other end of the caves, they're just waiting. Lord Summerisle and everyone's waiting. But
Lord Summerisle has gotten back into his Wayne Coyne outfit.
Yeah, he's dressed as Wayne Coyne now. Yeah, and a yellow turtleneck and his tweed jacket. And Rowan runs to them happily. And it's revealed at that point that she's been playing along too. And now it's Howie who is the real sacrifice. He was the right kind of adult, they say. They say an animal is good, but only takes you so far. The perfect sacrifice is the right kind of adult. And the right kind of adult is one who would come to them of his own free will, who would come to them with the power of the king, which he has in his authority as a policeman, who would come to them as a virgin, and who would willfully play the fool, right? And he did that by dressing as the fool, which they tricked him into doing. So he's the right kind of adult, and they have been orchestrating his entire stay on Summerisle to this point. And they want to sacrifice him because, yes, their cops have failed, but his perfect sacrifice will bring the cops back. This is where they kind of like they have their final confrontation of religion, right? And I really, it's really kind of a powerful thing, especially, for a Catholic. He's right when Lord Summerisle says, "We're conferring upon you a rare gift these days, a martyr's death," right? And he's right. He explains that this will be, you'll be able to join the saints in heaven. And it's right. I mean, according to the Catholic religion, if you die a martyr's death, you go straight to heaven. You become a saint, essentially. And so you kind of, it's terrifying for Howie, but if he's truly steadfast steadfast in his beliefs, then this should be a glorious death for him, right?
But
So
he tries to bargain
fascinating.
his way out of it, though,
He does.
which does show that maybe he has a little bit of when the chips are down, maybe he doesn't have true faith in what's going on because.
But I've always found some of the stories of the saints to be really creepy because they willfully die. They don't fight to survive. They willfully die. And I always feel like that seems disingenuous too, right? Because to me, that just it discounts so much of what your earthly life should be, or how it discounts life in general. To me, it's like, oh, that's I don't know. It always kind of creeped me out. So anyway, this is where Christopher Lee, they have their back and forth about this, but Christopher Lee's like, look, this is inevitable. It's time to keep your appointment with the Wicker Man. And they strip him, they anoint him, they throw him in the giant Wicker Man and burn him to fucking death while they sing and dance around him. It's terrifying, but also just so cool.
And it's filmed so well, it looks like they literally burn him.
I know. It's amazing how well they make it look. I mean, they obviously burned that thing, and he's in there. I don't know how they did it. It's phenomenal. Yeah.
And I love the way the last thing you basically see, the head of the Wicker Man falls off, and it's right as the sun is setting. It's super freaking cool.
Yeah, it is super cool.
It's inferring to you that this thing worked for them in a way.
Yep.
Which is
there's one really important thing that I love as well. It's kind of Captain Howie's Sergeant
Captain Howie.
It's sort of his last dig, and it works. He says, when the crops fail next year, no one less than the king will do as a sacrifice, right? And he looks at Lord Summerisle, and Lord Summerisle has a moment of recognition that he knows he's right. But then he comes back and says, I know it will work. It will not fail. This is the perfect sacrifice. But he puts that in his head. It's like, you better hope it works because you're next year. This time next year, you have an appointment with the Wicker Man. It's fucking great. It's great. Yep.
You get the feeling Lord Summerisle would beat Cheeks if the crops fail again.
He probably would. Yeah.
He's got the money and the power. He can get out of there. He can get out of there real fast. Buy another island.
Yeah.
I will say when Edward Woodward, as dressed as punches the one guy, is not quite as good as Nick Cage punching a woman dressed as a bear.
That's the one thing I always remember, other than the bees. I remember that.
He just walks up, he just punches that lady and takes her bike.
Is that the Wicker Man 2006?
Yeah.
Oh, I should have watched that.
That's the thing I remember even more than the bees is that scene in Killing.
That's hilarious.
That and what's in the bag? A shark?
I don't remember that.
That's at the very beginning when he arrives on the island. They're carrying this bag that's probably got like a body or something in it, and he thinks it's a shark.
Yeah. I do need to go back and watch that just for fun.
I thought about it, but I couldn't be fucked to do so.
I did rewatch the spiritual sequel that Robin Hardy made in 2011 called The Wicker Tree. Oh, that's a painful movie. It is just terrible. And it's weird because there's good actors in it, but they're all acting terribly. It's bad. It's a real bad movie. There are plot lines that just don't go anywhere. It's inexplicably bad. It makes you wonder how they even raised the money to make it. It's atrocious. I mean, it's a curiosity. Jeff, it would probably fit right in with a B movie enema article, but holy hell, it is terrible.
Well, it can get in line. I got a lot of things in line right now.
It's like it has none of the charm of the original. It's just wow.
love this movie. I mean, it's fine. This movie is almost a curiosity for me than anything. And I'm not going to say that the 2006 is better. That's a different kind of curiosity. That's a Nicolas Cage going bonkers, punching a lady in a bear suit kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, it's a fascinating movie. I like I like Midsummer more. I do not think, and I wholly disagree with people who say that Midsummer is a ripoff of this movie.
No.
It absolutely isn't. It's inspired by, it's pastiche, but it's not. It is not. I mean, I've seen people say that it was unethical in how it seemed to rip off the
thematically. It's a completely different movie. Yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty funny though, because I talked to Steph about this, and I told you guys, I think that, or maybe I told her this, it'll be one of two things for her. She'll either love it or she hate it. It will hate it. I was wrong. She said it was just okay, which is kind of hilarious to me. But I pressed her on
That's
it
what she says about every movie.
I know. It's funny. She does. I sent her like all the accolades for this film, and I'm like, you like what you like. That's fine. I have no judgment for you. But it's hilarious that you like this. Say this movie's just okay when it's this well regarded. Well, she said, well, I figured it out. And two, it probably would have been way better had I not already seen Midsummer. So she figures Midsummer, and again, they're not the same movie at all, in my opinion, but she thinks that's a much better version of this story.
No, I do think you have to take the movie in the context of when it was released.
Sure.
And what it was trying to be against the backdrop of like the Gothic horror of the time in England, right?
Well, the Gothic horror
it was
is
a very
all
deliberate attempt to make something new and different.
Yeah, well, and Gothic horror is very, very Catholic based.
Yeah.
Right. Or at the very least, maybe Episcopalian more than anything. Maybe, I don't know, but it is very religious based, and this flies in the face of that. Mm-hmm. Even to the point where, Christianity loses in the end.
Yeah.
That's not common even today.
Well, I just marvel that this movie, like, even if you don't like it, it's a marvel to me that they made a movie that's a musical that's also terrifying, but it's all often very upbeat and terrifying. Like, yeah, it's not depressing at all.
Yeah. It's an easy breezy 90 minutes for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. The writer, Howard David Ingram, who wrote We Don't Go Back, A Watcher's Guide to Folk Horror, his essay on The Wicker Man is really good. Probably one of the best ones in the book. And he makes the case that The Wicker Man is the way that evangelical Christians or conservatives view liberals, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it is that lens. This movie is told through that lens. And he calls it a conservative film for that. It's like, that is fascinating to think about, the POV there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I still, after watching this movie, don't necessarily know who the bad guys are. I mean, I know, but it's still like kind of questionable with the way that how he acts. Mm-hmm. He's a bad guy too.
Yeah.
Like, in a lot of ways. So nobody is really a great person in this movie at all.
Well, one side is, straight up murdering people. The other side is so, like, dead set on keeping tradition. Mm-hmm. Religious tradition, no less, which is the worst kind of tradition. But yeah, and it's like, well, guy, you're going to lose me right there on that guy.
It's a self-righteous. Well, they're the same way in that regard too. But they're so much more he's so much more self-righteous about it.
Right.
It's like, well, my God is better than your gods. right?
And they totally
My God can beat up your God.
Right.
they use his whole moral fabric against him, and it's
Yes.
great. Like, you don't notice it the first time you watch this, but on subsequent watches, you're like, it's genius how they make him the beetle on the string. Like, it's awesome.
Well, yeah, and that's, you know, I mean, yeah, that's the totally using somebody's what
Hubris.
well, yeah, it's I can't think of the word. Move along.
Move along.
Yeah.
Well,
But yeah, I really like this movie, and it's, again, we joked about watching it weekly, but this is just one of those movies, along with next week's movie, that I can just watch whenever and be happy.
Well, that sounds like a segue.
it sure
It
does.
is a bit of a segue, and if there's nothing else you guys have, I'll tell you what we're watching next week.
Go for it.
We're watching Grosse Pointe Blank with John Cusack and Dan Aykroyd in probably one of my favorite roles he's ever done.
He is the most Dan Aykroyd ever in this movie.
But he also goes against his normal kind of role a lot. So I don't know. Grosse Pointe Blank. I'm looking forward to
Grosse Pointe Blank.
Yep. It is Grosse Pointe. I spell it wrong every time I spell it. I have an E on the wrong word.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I kept wanting to add the E to the end of blank. Yeah. So so that is next Wednesday. Grosse Pointe Blank. I even have it written down on the calendar with only one E at the end of the right word, but not both right words. That is going to be, of course, on your filmseizure.com, you know, the regular places that we post our stuffs. You can follow us. It's all there on the website. You can also follow us Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, there's Monster Mondays on all of those same places, filmseizure.com. Next Monday is the last broadcast, which is a little bit of a different monster movie. There's a search for a monster, but it's not a monster that does the things. So different. It's a little bit different, but it's. I talked a couple of years ago about my love for the Blair Witch Project, and I thought, well, might as well talk about the other movie that was being made around that same time. But the following Monday, we are going to return to a folklore type of thing, because I did the Doctor Who episode for Monster Mondays called The Demons.
Oh, nice.
Or the Daemons. It depends on how you want to pronounce that word.
This is thoroughly entrenched. That episode is thoroughly entrenched in the folklore discussion.
1971. So it's right there. It was the season finale of that year, and it's one that is worthy of every Halloween type of watch. It is very moody. It's somehow simultaneously very Doctor Who, but also very different than it ever had been before. So in a couple Mondays, I'll be returning to this kind of talk. It's kind of funny how that ended up. We should have done Wicker Man a week or two later. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. That's not how the draw from the hat worked out. But so anyway, same place for all that stuff. So, you know, check us out. Do those things. But really, if you follow us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you're going to learn when stuff is happening. This Friday on bmovieenema.com, my website, I have the only way that I can follow up Atento Brass Month with this first week of March, and that is to go right to Brad Jones and talk about another Cinema Snob movie. A few years ago when I did Blue March, the only way I could follow up a whole month of pornos was to talk about the Cinema Snob. Tento Brass is the same thing. His favorite movie is Caligula anyway, so, you know, it only makes sense. Yeah. So anyway, so that is Friday at bmovieenema.com. Hey, and before too much longer, I'm going to be talking about season 3. That's coming in May. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's time for B Movie Enema, the series, to come back to your YouTubes and your various watching devices. So until then, I'm Jeff Arbuckle, the intelligent salmon of knowledge.
I'm Chuck Moore.
I'm Jason Oliver. And you have been listening to Film Seizure.